All right. Hope everybody's doing really good. I'm Rob Foster. This is KC Music Talk. We're here talking with a bunch of musicians and teachers and whatever about different kinds of music stuff. We have a really special guest today, Dr. Mark Laycock. He is an educator and conductor at Wichita State University. And we have a little bit of history, you and I. I actually went to Wichita State and had you for a couple of years. So this is going to be really fun for me. How you been doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I was going to say this was 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. I've aged horribly, but you look great. You look the same.
You. Yeah, I look the same. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I had a lot of fun doing orchestra with you. I had you the last 3 years and a couple other conductors before that, but I think everybody who's had you as a student would probably say a similar thing, that you have a really, really great personality, and that really comes out in your teaching. And I'm sure most of the people that have had you have really enjoyed having you as a conductor. I think I can speak for them. So thank you for that.
I really appreciate that. And I was just thinking, and you were a product of Mary Lou Jones's program at Liberty. And I mean, you can't get any better than Mary Lou. So, I mean, I have tremendous respect for the experience that you had coming into my orchestra, and you were a terrific leader and wonderful violist. If that's not a contradiction in terms,
it is. The Viola jokes are not above the show. Speaking of Viola jokes, I have to say this. So there is a couple of little quips that I remembered you saying, and everybody has these, but one I remember you saying that was really funny was, I think I was student teaching with and it was you were at East one day. You were Wichita East, and you were conducting, and you were telling them something like this needs to open up like a tomb, or you said something to that effect, and then you started describing the tomb to them, and you said something like, this is over here and that's over there, and then there's a little pile of viola bows in the corner. I was like, that was, that cracked me up. I don't know, I was laughing in the background. But speaking of your personality, there was a couple that I wanted to share. That was one of them. Another one that you said that was cracking me up was you said, okay, so we had a section and it was 2 straight lines of down bows. I can't remember what song it was, but it was like a down, 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 over and over. And it said something like arco ad lib. And so somebody piped up in class, like, what does arco ad lib mean? I won't say the school, but you said, oh, that's for the other school in Kansas that can't do double downs. I was like, that was really, really funny. I was laughing my butt off on that. And then the one other one you said is when we went to Spain, and there's this teacher we had, and he was really, really academically focused. He was kind of like a kind of nerdy, if I could say that, and really like geeky orchestra guy. And he was a teacher. And so we were about to get on a bus, and you said something to the effect of, and he grabbed your luggage, right? And he took your luggage onto the bus, and you said, oh, Dr. So-and-so, you don't have to be my luggage biatch. And I just started laughing. We had never heard like professors like have such personality, because I'm sorry, but to me, a lot of the conductors and professors that I've had, Mary Lou is a little bit of an exception. She had some personality, but a lot of times in orchestra, we get a lot of like really orderly kind of people. They're to the T and whatever. What do you think is how has like kind of having a little bit of a personality like helped you in teaching?
That's a great question. I could go several different ways with that. I think, I mean, the music always has to be the focus. But if you think about it, even at the collegiate level, we're teaching students through music. And the most important thing is, can I give the students in front of me lessons about life, just how to be better people, how to work together, how to have a transcendent artistic aesthetic experience. And you want the performance to be as good as possible, but you want to touch touch these people as humans as much as possible. I guess I take advantage a little bit of the collegiate level, the maturity, in that you can be a little bit irrelevant, and then come back irreverent. Maybe that's the word, irreverent, and come back and immediately be serious and work on something. So you can take a little tangent, but you can get back on, much quicker than you could probably with high school students, definitely with middle school students. So I like that about college teaching. Also, I'm a trombonist, and so I've got a little bit of that, band personality. I think of one of my mentors who was Art Bartner, the band director at USC, who's just a tremendous inspiration, and he was very much about the students, making connections with the students, and I hope to aspire to that level of care and love and collegiality, if you will.
Yeah, I know. I'm a big talker myself, and I one of my struggles with teaching is that I hope that I'm saying a lot of good stuff to them while I'm teaching them, but sometimes I can get in the process of talking too much to them, especially the younger they go. And my mom, who's been an educator for a long time, she's like, stop talking, play. But do you, right. And in your situation though, with kind of your type of personality, I found that when I talk too much, I feel like they zone out a little bit. But when we had you, if you would go, like you just said, if you would go off on stuff, it's like, I don't know if you're thinking about this, but it's like, we're honing in and waiting for your great personality, but like in the meantime, we're also listening to the other stuff you're saying. And I don't know if that's conscious on your part, but I think that kind of happens with us.
I mean, I'd love to take credit for that.
Yeah,
I think things are. I mean, I know that spending time in a classroom as a student, that if a teacher, gives a lesson with an analogy, I'm much more likely to remember it, even if it's crazy, even if it's unrelated. But if there's some analogy that kind of gets to the heart of what we're after. Earlier in March, I was in Colorado for 3 days doing a kind of a state ASTA festival, and would work with 8 orchestras every day. And John Hermanson is the director there, who invited me. And he said, Mark, I can always count on you to go right up to the line, but never cross over it. So, and this is the 3rd time he's had me back. So I guess I haven't offended anybody, which is good. And I guess certain personalities that I click with, and like you say, I've had clinics that have just fallen flat because the students were not prepared for me, or like you say, expected this dry kind of serious by the book, and I'm not in music for that. I love music, but it's and the pandemic has shown us those times that we had to do Zoom classes, you take away any kind of human interaction, and it just comes down to the music. You're trying to teach a music lesson via Zoom, and it was completely empty. It was unfulfilling. And it's the human element that really makes it. That's why I'm in this profession, the human element. And so I can't imagine being just completely focused on music. I want the humor, I want whatever it might be to support the music and to lift up the music, but I can't imagine it's just all about the music. I wouldn't be in this profession if that were the case.
Coming up right to the line, spoken like a true comedian. They come up right up, put their foot over, like kind of dance. They know where to go. And I know you were the other thing that all of us immediately noticed, and I think I can speak for anybody that was for sure around when I was at WSU, is that you definitely have a lot of expertise in the music field. You said that you played trombone, and I know that in addition to, because I think, yeah, because we did a tour up to Kansas City too, and I'm sure you've done many of those where you've taken either your orchestra on tours talking to the younger kids, or done like coachings or whatever in different random stuff. And there's a reason why everybody keeps asking you for that, because I think you're a really great conductor. You have a lot of good stuff to say. Do you like doing those? Like all the younger kid kind of stuff?
I love doing those. Yeah. It's one of my favorite parts of the job. Just because, I mean, again, you make that human connection. And I taught 6 through 12 orchestra for 5 years in Las Vegas.
Yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah.
Another Mary Lou Jones connection. Her daughter taught there, and I had mentors in Vegas. And, as a trombonist, probably had no business teaching strings, but I had great mentors. I had great training in college to kind of get me ready for that, string pedagogy classes and all of that. But I'd love to go back and even a good middle school orchestra, if they are receptive, and it doesn't even have to be a good orchestra. I was just thinking about this the other day. The kids just need to be receptive. Let's try. Have you tried it this way? What if we tried it this way? That's the kind of the standard pre-clinic disclaimer that I make. It's not about better or worse, or might be a little different from what your director does. 90% of the time, I'm just saying stuff that the director has said, weeks and weeks and weeks, and after a while, it just kind of shut down. But as somebody who's from more than 50 miles away, all of a sudden, I'm an expert, and so you get to come in and tell a few jokes, and maybe they perk up a little more than usual with their usual director, which is human nature. But I love that aspect of the job.
Yeah, sure. It's always nice for us as the private teacher when we send our students to, or they send them to us, and then they're like, hey, higher C sharps. Hey, watch your rhythm. Hey, and then I'm saying, hey, higher C sharps. Hey, watch your, and you get that like street cred or something, however you want to, you want to verbalize it, but you're saying the same stuff that they are. And then the teacher looks good too.
Right. Maybe they know what they're talking about. No, go figure.
Yeah. So you said, about coming from trombone, how was that for you coming to orchestra? Was there anything like tricky about that, or like learning curve, or like?
I mean, I didn't foresee myself teaching strings right away. It was kind of a gradual evolution. But I had at USC, I had Jim Chelland, who's a huge name in string pedagogy. I mean, wrote with Jackie Dillon, wrote Strictly Strings, has a definitive book on orchestral bowing. And at the time, you don't know that. You just here's this guy's name. I can't even pronounce it, but I'll go ahead and take his string pedagogy class. And it was amazing. And then, like you say, it's just mentors. And then in my master's, because I didn't go into public school teaching until after my master's degree. And again, in my master's program at University of Nebraska, there were a couple of individuals that just were patient and explained things over and over again. I had some private violin there, not with the idea that I become a performer, but let's, Mark, I'm going to teach you so that you can teach others. And so I think that I don't want to say there was any advantage, except for the fact that as somebody who struggled, fairly late in life to learn how to play strings, there might be a little bit of advantage in me. Okay, now I know how to maybe explain it a little more clearly to kids who are trying to, as opposed to the 5-year-old Suzuki student who just played violin all his or her life, and it's second nature. I struggled with it. I continue just to learn about pedagogy on a weekly basis, but it's and again, it's mentors. I wouldn't be sitting here today without, I could list you half a dozen people that kept me afloat and took the time, and you just want to try to pay it forward, as it were.
Yeah, we've all kind of had those, the handful, of teachers throughout that kind of gave us a little little nugget here and there, and we kind of end up being who we are. Sticking with the kids, have you seen any like, I don't know, any trends with that K through 12 when you're going out to the schools or coachings, the state things, and the just going to regular schools in general? Have you seen any? I guess you could answer this however you want, but like, first of all, are there any trends that you need to do as a teacher when you're teaching kind of younger? And then also, have you seen any trends, like, let's say 2000 as an example, and then today? Have you seen any like trends of differences? Or you can kind of answer however you want, I guess.
I think and I have the advantage of not being with these students on a daily basis. But if I go and do an all-state,
Yeah.
I'll spend 48 hours with these kids. It will be nose to the grindstone for a short amount of time.
And then your grandparents, you just throw them back.
Right. If I go into a clinic somewhere, same thing. But, I do notice in attending conferences and in talking to teachers, and that's again, one of the most amazing and gratifying parts of my job is just meeting and becoming friends with so many public school teachers, and to hear their challenges and their struggles. I think, this concept of social emotional learning, which is something that string teacher with music teachers have been doing since music was invented. But now, there's a name for it, which is good. And there's maybe a positive structural element that wasn't there. Okay, we're going to make sure that we incorporate this into our curriculum. Diversity is so much more important. I still joke when I go into a clinic session and we're playing a piece of music. Well, have you guys talked about the composer? And they probably have, but they forget. And so the kid, it's the Dvorak. Well, okay, well, this is orchestra, so he's a dead white guy. And they kind of giggle. And fortunately, that's changing. And I think that's a hugely positive thing. So there's greater diversity in the repertoire. I think we need to acknowledge the social emotional part of that. I think our students today are under I think a lot more stresses than we were back in the day, just in terms of social media and the pressures and the bullying and the kind of self-esteem issues that come with this public persona. So I feel for students today, and I feel for teachers today who are in the trenches having to deal with that on a daily basis.
What are so with the kids, because I struggle with this as a teacher, where I sometimes have adult students teaching privately, and then I'll have these kind of core of high school, maybe even middle school age, and then I'll have the younger. And I found there's some stuff that's the same, but there's some stuff that's like very different. For me anyways, the adults, I can just analogy them to death and they get all of them, and they just get every single thing I'm saying. But you have to like really pick and choose your words, I found, with the really young kids. And so do you change yourself when you do, like when you go down and do middle school as opposed to the college kids, or what do you think?
I probably don't. And there's, if your analogies are general enough and hopefully life lesson enough, that they apply across the board. I know I was just in Olathe Northwest on Thursday, and we were having a pretty good time. Joel Martin is the director there. He's terrific. And this was
from
his
Wichita State.
No, he's not. But he's still good.
He wasn't.
He was from Wichita State. I don't think. No.
It was Mary Lou. He was my student teacher.
Jeffrey Bishop. Jeffrey Bishop is one of those Kansas City guys.
Huh. Yeah.
Joel Martin, I don't think so.
Yeah, I thought he was. Anyway, that's fine.
But terrific program, and so the second chair, first violinist says, we're talking about, and he says, "Oh, you slay, Dr. Laycock, you slay," and I have no idea what that means, but obviously it was a positive thing. And so the class kind of giggled about that. And then half an hour later, I made a reference to that and they giggled again. So I think there's a certain charm in an older person trying to be hip. I'm not even going to try to, but once in a while I'll throw, if there's an analogy or, oh, geez, let's not talk about something. And I'll say, oh, like Bruno, we don't want to talk about Bruno. The kids pick up on some of those. Mm-hmm. So I try to stay just a tiny bit current enough that I can maybe throw out one during a class session and perk up a little bit.
Yeah. So another thing that I've been struggling with a lot, and I think most teachers struggle with this, is that like, it's sort of like how hard to go at them. And so like I found when I've talked to a number of teachers over the years, you can kind of tell the ones that are really hardcore, they're kind of more drill sergeant-y, and then you can also tell some of the teachers that are much more interested in the kids being really motivated. And the one struggle that they like playing, and then furthermore that they like me, and this may be unfair, but I don't know if they're going all I want them to be my friend kind of a thing, but it's frustrating because when I talk to a lot of those kinds of teachers that want the motivation, I'll talk to them for about 20 minutes and nowhere in there did I hear them say that the kids are getting like good though. It's all like, they like it. They like it. They like it. They like me. They like me. And the other teachers are like, no, but scales, modes, and we have to, the etudes and tune and, and so like, if you look at it very binary like that, they're kind of, you can get really, with the drill sergeants, you can obviously get kids that are very turned off by that. And then they accidentally quit, and then, but the other teachers, sometimes I wonder if those students sometimes, because they weren't kind of kicked in the butt a little bit, when they should have, they don't kind of get as far, and I've always thought part of the motivation is like, by the time you get to be 8th grade, you can, like, if you start in 4th or 5th-ish, you can feel like you're kind of doing something. You're able to play like a 2-page song and you can feel it. You're kind of doing, and I think that's part of the thing that gets kids to keep going. It's not just, I have a whole different theory on self-esteem, that I think part of the self-esteem is that, you're like achieving and stuff, not just that somebody said you're good, and so like, do you find a struggle between how hard to push on them, or like what age you need to be hard, or like, do you know what I'm saying? Like I struggle with that.
Right. I agree. And again, not being in the trenches on a daily basis, I'm not sure if I'm the best resource for that. I do see, you visit a program and you wonder if there's a slight bit of, cult of personality going on, that it's kind of about the teacher and you want that relationship to be positive. But, if you take the teacher out of the equation, does the student want to continue to be in music? And oftentimes, I graduate to high school and all of a sudden that teacher's not there and the kid drops out. So you want the motivation to be intrinsic. You want to find a way for the students to feel satisfaction, to feel challenge. I'm reading a book called Flow right now, which is a 30-year-old book, but it's a wonderful book about how in all sorts of life pursuits, you can kind of direct your psychic energy into, just forward motion, self-propelling kind of experience, and you get satisfaction from that. It might be mountain climbing, it might be painting, it might be running for an athlete, it might be music. So it's not technically a music book, but I highly recommend it. And I've only a third of the way through it, so I can't really give you a lot of lessons from it, but I can tell you that it's really setting up some interesting interesting conclusions. So finding that intrinsic motivation, making sure that the students are getting something out of it. As we approach the classroom, you've got just dozens of reasons why those students are there. The parents are forcing them to be there. There's always that in a public school classroom. Like you say, there are those top level achievers that even if you are the meanest, strictest teacher, they're going to be there because they just thrive on that challenge. And then it's those in-between students, finding ways for them to excel and to feel good about it. I think a lot of it, frankly, has to do with choice of repertoire. And I see, looking back on my early career, and geez, even now I have to be so careful about over programming, not to program music that's too difficult. And you want to make sure that there's something that the majority of the program, all of your students are going to feel accomplishment. There can be, one or two pieces on a program it's going to stretch your lower level students, but you want to make sure those lower level students are achieving and feeling great about the majority of the pieces on your program. It's a delicate balance.
Yeah. I mean, that's got to be a struggle. I think it's way easier when you have like one-on-one. I mean, to pick a piece, because there's like just no other variables, but like picking that, if you have like 6 level players and then you have also 3s, it's really hard to pick a 4-level piece, a level 4 piece, right. I mean, you want like, you want the 6s to not be completely bored, and you want the 3s to not quit, and so, I mean, have you found that tough to like pick music for your orchestra? I mean, it's got to be getting better now, just with more experience, right? But
right.
Yeah.
I do, but there are also those pieces where maybe they're not technically too demanding, but musically the potential is incredible. And so you can take an easier piece, but with a higher level student say, oh, we're going to shape this, we're going to color this thing, we're going to give the audience this artistic experience. Those are the pieces that, kind of have a wide range of success potential that the younger students can feel like, oh, I can play these, quarter notes and half notes. And the older students can say, well, I'm going to add some vibrato here. I'm going to, so I encourage teachers to look for those pieces that maybe don't have the technical challenge, but artistically, you can really push them in a good direction.
Yeah, I found that like Bach and Mozart, they're so good for kids because they're like accessible enough, but like college students like get destroyed. You know what I mean? If you want to do these perfect, you know what I mean? Or if you want to do these at a very high level, Mozart can kick your butt really bad, and so maybe that's what you're kind of discussing, where it's accessible enough, but there's a long ways if you want to really make this at a kind of semi-professional level. And there's a lot of pieces like that. You were saying, good.
I was going to say, it's kind of interesting. You don't even realize, as a kid, high school kids, you do hear high school kids playing Bach and doing a good job with it. But it's sort of, once you get more mature, you look back and say, geez, I did not even scratch the surface on in terms of the depth and the expression that I could have gone with that. So that's a good sign that that you're maturing when you look back and say, well, I had no business playing that piece, or I was not nearly as successful as I thought I was.
Yeah, you said something interesting a minute ago about where it's all about the teacher. I thought that was an interesting phrase. And I think, I mean, just being honest, that I can probably fall into that a little bit of struggling with that, just to be honest, and I'm sure we could mention 4 or 5 off the top of our heads of teachers we might have seen before that might fit into that category. And I don't even know what my question is, but that's just really interesting that you said that, because I know what you mean by that. And you can tell the teachers that are about the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And there are some I mean, I've seen, recently on a national level that couple of schools where, boy, the teachers, yeah, it's almost a cult-like situation, but they're successful. I mean, the students, will just walk to the end of the earth on behalf of this teacher, and the programs are successful, and the students seem to have a positive experience. So I think that the right teacher can make that work. I like you say, I think it's dangerous when it is just about the teacher and the quality, the artistic experience, the collegiality, the teamwork isn't there, that it just becomes a one-sided sort of a flow.
Yeah. With the other question about how hard do you go, and you could probably definitely answer this. So with college students specifically, I mean, I got kicked out of at least one viola lesson in college. I showed up and I wasn't ready. I mean, she had me, she had some stuff that I needed to go or I need to play. And I showed up and she said, "You sound like you did last week. Get out of here." And now I was in college. I'm sitting as a 20-year-old. She knows that I'm not accidentally here. I played since I was 3. Like, she knows kicking me out of this lesson right now, I'm not going to go quit. Like, she's reading me and knows that, like, how hard to push and stuff. And so with the how hard to push, there's one teacher who I won't mention in town that ran a certain thing here in town that was very for years, that had a history of calling kids out in the middle of the orchestra, like first chair, second violinist, in front of everybody, play it, no, faster, and he was and in front of everybody, and these were high school kids, and he was, but for 7 minutes in a row in the middle of rehearsal. And so his thing was, he was kind of one of those personalities where this is my way or the highway, and he only needed to do that, once. He picked somebody out at, 4th rehearsal of the year, and everybody, and then everybody went home and practiced, and he was, you're gonna, and middle school and high school, what do you think about that? Is that out of line?
Well, I think that points to extrinsic motivation. I think the motivation there is just fear that I don't want to be called out. And I think that I want to say, fortunately, our profession has changed. I think the public school music atmosphere and philosophy have changed. That kind of fear-based motivation is not nearly as accepted, not nearly as successful as it used to be. And I think it's much more difficult as a teacher for me to motivate students without that fear. How do I get us all on the same page? How do I get us working together as a team toward a common goal? And you mentioned being kicked out of a lesson. Ultimately that's what I want to do with my students is give them life lessons. I don't know how many are going to be professional musicians in the future. I don't know how many want to teach at the college level, how many want to play in a professional orchestra. But that kind of life lesson, are you prepared? Are you giving 100% of your effort? That kind of life lesson applies to any profession. It applies to your marriage. It applies to you approaching parenting. It applies to so much of it. Applies to everything in life. And if you can get across that lesson, and I admire Catherine Concilio so much. If that lesson, stuck with you on a particular day, and again, it wasn't fear motivated. It was just saying, this is calling it like I see it, and here you remember it, 15 years later. I think that's pretty powerful.
Yeah. And she only did it once, I think, and I can't even remember when it was, but it was just, she was just letting me know it was, I'm I'm not going to teach you if I'm just going to sit here and say the same thing I did last week. It's like I can do that, but I don't really want to. So that's it. Go
Right.
home and come back when you're ready, kind of. And I came back the next week and I was practiced for good, huge 4 days, and I came back better, and I was ready to do the lesson. And the one that I've also been like struggling with too is that now 15 years out of college, I'm struggling kind of conceptualizing college about how I sort of feel about it in general. Like I've been thinking so much about the whole idea of internal and external control, and what, like, obviously for any listeners out there, my understanding of external control is sort of like that it's never me, right? It's like my life is crappy, which one of you is to blame? It's like it's kind of a victim-y way to look at the world, where it's never anything I did. It was always somebody else. And then you have internal, there's the other side, where those internal people they're not convinced everybody else is always the issue here. There certainly might be things that are happening to you externally or whatever, but they believe that there's some choices that you go home and practice, as an example. And so when I was going through college, I have trouble conceptualizing, because I've been really clear with everybody. I mean, I was smoking weed 3 times a day, at college. There was a music library there. I have some days that I didn't practice. I mean, there was professors like you and Catherine Concilio, and that I didn't quite take advantage of. So if we're sitting here saying college didn't do enough for me, that's BS. There's some stuff I could have done. But the other issue that I'm running into is one of my favorite phrases recently is 2 things can be true at the same time. Is that, I didn't, do as much as I could have back then. I wasn't mature enough to take all that advantage, but at the same time, I had many conversations with other students about sort of the curriculum at college. And we get the advantage of teaching, of having a whole semester where we get to practice this thing that we're about ready to do. But I always wondered this is always a fun conversation for everybody, because everybody has so many opinions about the curriculum at college, and like, not to get you in trouble with anybody or anything, but do you have any opinions about like the kind of college curriculum and where their vision sort of is, and in the sense of preparing people to be an adult today? Are they a secondary high school, or are they supposed to be this, if you don't show up, go home? How hard should they be? You can answer that however you want, I guess. How's the college curriculum today?
Well, I think one of the advantages is that, if you're taking 15, 18 credits and you have half a dozen professors that you're interacting with in the course of a semester, I think you're going to get half a dozen different approaches. That, older folks like me might be a little bit more, okay, I've got attendance requirements. You need to be there. Your grade is going to be docked if you're not in class. You're tardy so many times. So I think there is still those of us on campus, but hopefully still with a humane, understanding approach, an empathetic approach. I know at Wichita State, we don't often enough, because we just don't have time as a music faculty to really delve into, is our curriculum serving our students? But it's in the back of our mind, certainly, and every once in a while we'll have an extended, pre-semester retreat, something like that, where we'll sit down and just say, and I think especially at the college level, things seem to move glacially, changes happen glacially. But there is an effort, at least at Wichita State, and I see around the country, there's an effort to modernize the curriculum, to take, you can never do away with the important artistic training, but to couple that with life lessons, We talk about, coming down the pike is building, each student will build a portfolio to kind of help show a better, well-rounded view of what he or she can do in the private sector as a career. So those changes are coming. They're coming slowly, but I'm encouraged to see that they're at least being considered.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about that? I've thought of this before, that so for teachers, if we have this big semester where we get to go kind of practice being a teacher, basically, which is really, really helpful. My dad, by the way, he looks at me like, oh, Mr. Complainy Pants, you got a whole semester to like practice your thing. They threw me out in the accounting field, so he's like, oh, boohoo, kind of an attitude with that. But do you think it would be worth, I just, there's no way nobody's thought of this. There's got to be a reason why we don't take Wichita public school kids 2 days out of the year and bring them into the college and set them up one-on-one with a college kid and do a couple of 30-minute private lessons. There's no way nobody's thought of that. It's not possible, right? So there's got to be a reason why they don't do that. Like, do you think doing that, like maybe twice before you do student teaching, would do anything? Or do you think that that's on us, that we need to go practice teaching before we, like, who is it? My question is, who's that on? Is that on the college, or is that on me to like kind of get a clue, go practice your craft? What do you think?
Right. That's a great question. And you can, I mean, just in general, you can never practice enough. I mean, you can never be prepared enough. And even student teaching, as immersive as that is, and as important as it is, it never really prepares you for just standing in front of your own class. I mean, first day of school as a brand new teacher, it's ground zero. You're getting fed to the wolves. But but student, I mean, you have to have that. And I do see students, college students, who are seeking out those opportunities for themselves, either by offering private lessons, either by volunteering in the schools. Like I say, I agree. It'd be great if there were some sort of systematized, codified program where that could happen. But I think those opportunities exist for motivated, for ambitious students. Eric Crawford at East High probably would welcome somebody coming in and like you say, taking students aside for half an hour and just working with them one-on-one. I bet all over Wichita, that would be something that would be more than welcome. And so stuff like that is kind of what the core of my question was earlier, is that like I'm struggling to think, like, why aren't they doing that, is the question. And so I'm struggling with it. Am I just way behind the ball, and people have like tried this before and it doesn't work for reason X, Y, and Z. And so I'm trying to reinvent the wheel here. And every generation we're like gonna reinvent the wheel, and then they don't realize that we already did that in the 30s. We tried that in the 30s and 60 million people died. But and no, it's new, but so I'm just kind of struggling with that with college and stuff. Was there anything that any patterns that you're seeing with any young teachers today or over your years of stuff that a lot of young teachers do, that, like, I thought of the talking thing about just talking too much and getting to playing as one that I know I did, and I'm sure other teachers, or maybe caring too much, taking your the problems home with you and stressing about them all night, or is there anything like that you see young teachers do? I think those are good ones. I mean, I see over programming a lot, and again, something that just comes with experience. But
Too ambitious.
You can always add another piece if I lowballed this one and we learned the program 3 weeks early, which I've never heard in my life, but it could have happened.
That's not a thing.
Yeah. So just erring on the side of caution, and I just quality repertoire. I mean, I get frustrated when I go out and I see schools performing, even if I'm judging a contest and there are three pieces. Typically you play three pieces for the judges and get a ranking, and two of those pieces are by the same composer. And I'm thinking there's so much great repertoire out there, and even if the two pieces by the one composer are a different style, it's still the same composer. You're not serving your students in terms of depth and breadth and variety. So just taking the time to get out there, and there are great resources for finding repertoire and taking the time to do that. And I think in general, just those teachers are most successful who are lifelong learners. And I think of Mary Lou Jones, perfect example that and it's a strange mix of this confidence, because you have to be confident in the classroom, but also the humility to say, I have so much to learn. It's not even funny. And I look to my heroes. I look to people that I want to be like. For me, Jeff Grogan and Sue Hahn are two names that I'll throw out there. But conductors and teachers that I just admire like crazy, and I could only aspire to be like them. But just incrementally, just step by step, what can I do that they do that I admire so much? How can I improve? Those folks that are at state conferences, national conferences, year after year, just trying to hone their craft. And obviously the conferences are about networking and building a community. Yes, you go to these clinic sessions and learn so much, but as important is that opportunity to connect with people and to just commiserate. So much happens at dinners and at lunches where you're just talking through problems, and hey, I need my viola section's weak this year, but my basses are strong. Do you have a piece? Well, yeah, I do. Last year whatever it might be. Those conversations are just invaluable. So I'm frustrated. I'm dismayed by some teachers that I see who just never come to the state conference. And I think, so you've learned it all, you've mastered it all, and wow, tell me your secret. That's wonderful.
I'm a 10. I have nothing to prove on, I wanted to. Mary Lou always said something. She would say something and then she'd be like, oh, just do what I mean, not what I say, and her point was that, like, she'd tell us the wrong measure or something, to start on. And she was like she was pretty humble, maybe is the word you're realizing, and that I make mistakes too. And I guess, and you're saying that I have something to learn. I think kids pick up on that pretty hard, like that you're not the know-it-all, and that you're willing, that I gave you too hard of a piece, or I've done that before, where I came back and I was like, the next week, and I'm like, you know what? I gave you a pretty darn crappy lesson last week. I'm really sorry. I'll say it in so many words, that I wasn't happy with how I did. I'm going to do better today. I was in a, wasn't yelling at him or something, but I was in kind of an annoyed attitude, and I just didn't, you think they pick up on that, right? And they respect if you do that.
Oh, exactly. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not saying, well, this guy's supposed to be an expert, but I think it's an acknowledgement of our humanity, an acknowledgement of that desire just to always be better. Okay. And that's one of the things that I love about teaching is that tomorrow's another day. And so you can have, you just come home at the end of the day and you just feel terrible. This did not go well. It did not click. I wasn't prepared. I didn't anticipate problems that came up, but thank God tomorrow's another day.
Mhm.
and to come back and get a good night's sleep and just tackle it again, and to share those struggles with your students when it's appropriate, and because they may be having, they have the same challenges in their classes as well.
Mhm.
So we can kind of hopefully model some positive reinforcement and positive improvement.
Yeah. I really, really appreciate your time. I got two more really quick questions for you, and then we'll get out of here. With conducting, I remember I was doing the little group. Uh, the teacher we had was joking that he brought me on to the Titanic. Like the group was, kind of going down the Hutchinson U Symphony, and they had lost 30 members, and he's like, I kind of brought you onto the Titanic to let this group die, like, and, as the conductor. But you were really nice. I came to you one time, and I can't remember. Oh yeah, we did the or not we did what's the Schubert Unfinished Symphony, and we were working. I think we were working on just the first movement of that, and some other pieces. And you're really nice to kind of sit there and kind of help me just think through it, and how are you going to do this and that. What's a one, like, for like a young conductor, what's like one or two like pieces of advice conducting wise of things that people kind of get wrong maybe, or that they do, not just teaching but conducting specifically?
Right. Excellent question. I think you can never be over prepared. You can never know the score too much. And I'm teaching advanced conducting right now, so it's the second semester conducting, and students are still learning that lesson. They'll get up for their 10 or 12 minutes of time in front of the group and just quickly realize, you're being bombarded by these sounds. You're trying to think pedagogy. You're trying to keep track of which direction your hands are going in. You can just never be over prepared in terms of score study and preparation. And I think in a certain respect, we put too much emphasis on conducting and on the physical gesture, that if you're a musician, and if you are a teacher, a pedagogue, and you make connections with the students in your classroom, that's what they're going to respond to. You don't have to look like Dudamel physically. But if you're bringing an experience to them, if you're sharing this incredible artistic experience with them and helping them to improve through it, that's the main thing. And your gestural skills will improve. They'll become more confident. They'll become more natural. You won't have to think about them as much. But rely on your pedagogy, rely on your own instrumental skills. I mean, everybody is a musician. You come to this, you bring an incredible wealth of skills to the classroom. Don't worry if your physical conducting gestures are not there yet. They will be.
Yeah. I always struggled with when I was doing the pattern. I never had any problems with the keeping a kind of circular motion or something, like to really make sure we're doing a staccatoed spot or like a Debussy or something, kind of a song where it needs to be really flowy and stuff. But doing I'd always do the stair step, when with my left hand, if I'm still doing it. It's like little stuff like that was always a struggle for me, to separate the two hands a little bit, right. And I know what you mean about like you've heard a particular song a lot, especially if you've played it, maybe at least once or twice yourself, and then you're conducting it. But it's a whole different deal. Like the thing is happening, but you keep forgetting, oh yeah, that's clarinets, not oboes. Oh, that's seconds, not viola, or whatever, and so you're talking about like knowing your score. You can really, like, I know what you mean. Like, you can't know it like too well. It's like almost impossible. Like there's too much, especially like I remember Maestro Palmer, who I had before you at Wichita State. I mean, we did Mahler first. I mean, that's an hour of just course crap. I mean, it's just stuff. I mean, it's just, there's so much going on in a piece like that. And And then he was going. And then one time he stopped us and he goes, okay. And then he goes, flip, 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 flip. We're like, you have that shit memorized? What? You know, and like, I mean, he flipped through like, you know, 2/3 of the movement and he wasn't even looking, you know. We're like, what is going on here? You know, like, you're like a psychopath, you know, you're just awesome. You know, I mean, he's just got all that crap in his head. We're like, wow, you know, yeah. And anyway, so like last question, you can kind of answer this however you want, but do you have any like kind of, and you obviously don't have to mention any names, but do you have any like kind of funny stories with a student or funny moments in your teaching business of some really horrible concerts that you got to participate in, or really great concerts? Or do you have any kind of like interesting stories?
I mean, nothing that specifically comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
I could just remember, you know, that first quarter, first semester beginning class, you know, my Fremont Middle School strings.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, if you get through a piece on a concert, it's a victory.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the number of times you'd have to start or, you know, start over or whatever. And the parents are just delighted. I mean, they don't care because they've heard these kids practice the scratchy, squeaky at-home practice, if they're practicing at home at all. But then to see their child participating in this thing that's greater than themselves is just such an exciting thing. So I guess the lesson from that is, as you know, as disastrous as artistically as I think, oh my, you know, I'm going to lose my job. That it's often somebody else is looking at it as a very positive thing, as a victory. One of my frustrations as a judge, a contest adjudicator, is I have no idea where the music was on the first day they passed it out. And you know, that'd be impossible to set that up. But you know, the performance that I'm hearing on stage, you know, how far it might be miraculous, the fact that they're getting through it. And you know, I'm hearing things and I wish that were better and all of that. But you have to give credit to the students. You have to acknowledge at all levels just the teamwork, the successes that are there, because the successes are there, and the students need to feel that. They need to have measurable goals that they can celebrate.
Yeah. So, sorry, one more question. You said about judges. What do you think about the whole idea of rating kids?
I think it's a necessary thing. I draw the line at competition, and I was chair of the National Orchestra Festival for 2 years, so I'll put that out there, where there is a grand champion that's crowned and that sort of thing. I think a rating is fine. I think the attitude, the reception of that rating comes from the teacher. And I've seen in classes where the teacher is so focused on that rating and tries to get the students, to achieve a certain rating. And I've fortunately have seen many more classrooms where it's about the experience. And what have we learned? Process versus product. You want the project to be good. Don't get me wrong, but the process is where the learning comes from. And hopefully the product of that process will be, a high level performance, but the process is where it's at. So you as the teacher, you set the atmosphere in your classroom. If you're solely focused on the rating, then your students will be too. And there's going to be days when, judges, they come from all different backgrounds, and they had a terrible lunch, or they wake up crabby that day, or geez, they only have decaf. There's so many things that affect the rating, but has the process been a positive thing? And that's what you can put the emphasis on.
Right. Sports is really about like winning. I mean, any game, the whole point is to win the game, but music is really different. It's not set up like that. You know, it's not about really winning, and especially there's no against. You know, there's no verses, you know, kind of attitude,
right.
but
A zero sum kind of thing. We can all
I've had students. Yeah, I've had students in the past where I know that they where the orchestra and hierarchy is just a thing. You know, it's like you go in your orchestra, and you, especially if you're getting these like 1 through 4 or 1 through 5 kind of rating kind of things, and they know. And it's not that I did a great one kind of performance today. That's one like framing of this, you know, but the other framing is I am a 3, you know, not like as a person or something, you know, like those are the ones over there, those couple of kids, and I'm over here with the 3s, you know, like they can really like, and that sucks, you know. I know that that's a problem for you to have that attitude, and it's hard to do that. But like I said with the motivation kids, unless I'm struggling with that too, because unless you have some sort of like striving thing there, I feel like they lose the attention to detail and the striving and the pushing. And so, you know, there's a risk there of them losing that. So I'm kind of up in the air. I kind of don't hate the rating kind of thing. Maybe the verses, like Allstate is verses. It just is, you know, I mean, you have this group of people, they get in, you don't. But the one ratings isn't really verses. It's sort of against yourself, which is what you want, right? I mean, yeah.
If the rating is a vehicle for learning, for improving, that's what we can hope for. If it's, you know, a be all and end all to get that 1, then even if you get the 1, you haven't learned anything. Because even those superior performances, you're going to have judges' comments that, oh, let's do this. This could have been a little better, that sort of thing. But if you're just focused on the rating, if the learning is the focus, then I think that's the
if
goal.
It's made for a positive end, right? Instead of a negative. Yeah.
Right.
Well, I've taken up way too much of your time. It was really, really great to see you. You know, we haven't seen each other in many years now, you know, so it was really fun to talk to you. I'm really glad you're doing so well and out there and helping people and teaching and stuff. I really enjoyed having you as a conductor for those couple of years. And thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Rob. It was great to see you again. We need to sit down in person. Next time I'm in KC, I'll look you up. Coffee's on me.
That'd be fun. Yeah. Thanks. Anyway, conductor at Wichita State. Dr. Laycock's going all over the country all the time, you know, in the area and too, and you know, adjudicating and teaching everybody. So kind of find him wherever. And thanks for coming on the show. And that's it, guys. Get out of here. See you later.